The dog hadn't eaten in 5 days, but when the vet discovered why, the entire clinic went silent. At first, everyone thought it was just starvation. The dog, skin and bone, eyes hollow, had collapsed in a field behind an abandoned church in rural Montana. She looked desperate, but when kind-hearted strangers offered food, she refused to touch it. Not a bite. Not even water. It didn't make sense. The town's vet had seen broken animals before, but this one, something was different. She wasn't just starving, she was mourning. What they uncovered in her x-rays left the entire clinic speechless. But the most unbelievable part? She would go on to change the life of the woman who rescued her, in ways no one could have predicted. This is the true story of a dog who wouldn't eat, not because she couldn't, but because her heart had broken first. And how, against all odds, she found the one person just as wounded as she was, and healed her. Silence has a sound. You just have to know how to listen. Marion, Oregon, late October. The first winter winds swept across old wooden rooftops, carrying the musty scent of fallen leaves and firewood smoke. Winter hadn't arrived yet, but the chill had already begun to seep into the bones, especially on foggy mornings like that one. On his way home from the night patrol shift, Officer Sam Riggs was about to stop at his usual gas station when he noticed something odd behind the rusted fence of an abandoned lumber mill. A faint movement, a breath, barely audible. He pulled over, stepped out in silence, and within seconds he saw it. A dark, golden dog soaked in rain, skin and bones, curled up behind a few rotting wooden planks. No collar, no tags. No chip, and most notably, no reaction at all. Sam let out a soft whistle. "Hey, buddy!" No bark, no whine, just wide, hollow eyes, as if they had seen far too much. Sam crouched down, unzipped his jacket, and gently wrapped it around the trembling body. As his hand touched the dog's back, he could feel every bone through the paper-thin skin. His heart sank. Marion Veterinary Center, a small, white-painted building on the outskirts of town. Dawn had yet to break when Dr. Rachel Whitaker was awakened by a call from the local police. "There's an emergency case," Sam said curtly over the phone. "A golden retriever. I think something's very wrong." She arrived just 15 minutes later. A thick coat over scrubs, her dark brown hair tied back. No makeup, but a distinct sharpness in her face. Rachel had once been an emergency trauma surgeon in Portland. But after her fiancé's sudden death during a mountain rescue mission, she left it all behind. The hospital, the city, the friends, to return to Marion and heal the voiceless. Sam waited in the parking lot, opening the back of the patrol car. "I've never seen a dog like this. It won't eat, won't lick my hand, won't even whimper." Rachel knelt, her eyes meeting the dog's. A gaze so quiet, almost empty. Inside the clinic, Rachel gently laid the dog on the exam table, spreading a soft towel beneath it. Her hands moved across its shoulder blades, spine, checking heartbeat, measuring temperature. "Heart steady," she murmured. "Not severely dehydrated, but there's no reflexes." No growl, no resistance. Sam stood beside her, concerned. "I've called to it every way I know." "It doesn't respond." Rachel studied the eyes again. They didn't show fear or aggression. They showed endurance, a cold kind of surrender, just like she'd seen in trauma patients after catastrophic accidents. The kind of look that said someone had witnessed something words could never express. "I'm going to call you Logan," she whispered, placing a hand on the dog's head. "You're not just starving. You're carrying something much heavier." The next day, Rachel tried everything to get Logan to eat. She placed a bowl of homemade chicken stew in front of him. No reaction. A bowl of fresh water. Still nothing. She even used a syringe to drip water along his mouth. Logan allowed it. Didn't resist, but didn't swallow either. Maya Chen, a young vet tech with indie rock always in her earbuds and a wide smile, walked in with curiosity on her face. "Still not eating?" "No, and there's something strange." Rachel pointed at Logan's upper jaw. "His mouth is too tight." As if something stuck or placed inside. "A chip?" "No, not in that spot." Maya frowned. "You think he had surgery?" Rachel nodded. "Possibly." That night, after the clinic had gone dark, Rachel sat alone in the monitoring room, reviewing the footage. Logan lay still in his kennel, unmoving. But at around 3:00 a.m., the camera caught something surprising. Logan lifted his head when he heard Rachel's footsteps echo down the hallway. Just for a moment, then lowered it again. She didn't go home that night. Rachel laid a blanket on the long bench just outside the exam room, only a few feet from Logan's kennel. For the first time in years, she dreamed of someone calling her name through the cold wind on a mountain, the voice of the man she once loved. And the next morning, when she woke, Logan was looking at her, not with hollow eyes, but with something returned, a flicker of connection. Sometimes what's broken isn't the body. It's the soul. 7 a.m. Soft sunlight filtered through the foggy windows of the clinic. Maya entered with coffee and a box of waffles, only to find Rachel sitting beside Logan's kennel, her hand resting on the bars. "You slept here?" "Yeah." "And he looked at me." Maya frowned, sitting down next to her. "You mean, really looked at you?" Rachel nodded. "For the first time." They sat in silence, listening to Logan's slow, steady breathing. Something was changing, subtle, but real. That afternoon, Rachel made a rare decision, one she wouldn't normally do without full history, a full-body X-ray. She needed to know what had silenced this dog, both physically and emotionally. When the images appeared, the clinic fell silent. Inside the X-ray, a sliver of metal glinted in Logan's abdomen. Not a bullet, not a fractured bone, but a thin strip of metal less than 2 inches long, sewn into the stomach, eerily resembling a USB drive. Rachel sat up sharply. Who would do this? Maya was stunned. Implanting something into a dog? That's tech. No, that's a warning, Rachel said, or a message. Rachel knew she needed help. So she called Ethan Wolfe, a retired FBI agent who now ran a dog training facility near the Willamette Forest. Ethan had worked in tech-related crimes, and Rachel had once saved his canine partner 3 years ago. When Ethan arrived at the clinic, he looked at Logan for only a few seconds before saying, "This dog's been trained." "High level." "You're sure?" Rachel asked. "Look at his posture, that alert gaze even while lying still. And especially the ears." He pointed at Logan's ears. "He's tracking every footstep outside that hallway." Rachel told Ethan about the metal strip inside the dog. Ethan nodded. "If I had to guess, that's evidence. Some kind of data. Someone put it there to hide it, hoping it would never be found." That evening, as the clinic grew quiet, Rachel sat in front of Logan. She brought a small bowl, not of food, but of something else, a torn-up stuffed fox. It once belonged to her fiancé, the only thing that made her smile during her darkest days. She placed the toy in front of Logan. "You don't have to eat if you're not ready," she whispered. "Just know, you're not alone." Logan didn't move. But minutes later, something strange happened. The dog slowly extended a paw and touched the fox, then pressed his head gently against it. Rachel bit her lip, eyes welling up, not just from emotion, but because Logan was beginning to feel something he thought he'd lost forever: safety. 3 days passed. Logan still wouldn't eat, but he was drinking water now. And each morning when Rachel entered the room, he stood up, not in fear, but in recognition. And something else, Logan began, pacing around the room, stopping in specific places. As if sniffing something, Rachel set up a camera and noticed a pattern. He always stopped at one exact spot, facing the window, staring toward the forest edge. "Why there?" Maya asked. Rachel thought aloud. Maybe it reminds him of something. Maybe someone came from that direction. Ethan dropped by again that afternoon. Seeing Logan staring at the trees, he stepped closer, knelt down, and whispered, "You're waiting for someone to come back, aren't you?" And for the first time, Logan let out a soft whimper, not of pain, but of longing. Rachel sat writing a report, her hand trembling slightly. She had once believed she could never love an animal the way she loved people, but Logan wasn't like any dog she'd met. He didn't need saving. He needed understanding. A soft knock at the door. Sam Riggs, the officer who'd found Logan, stood there, holding a manila envelope. I asked around the local precincts to see if anyone reported a missing dog in the last 3 months. There's a file. From Redmond, owner's a software engineer, name's Owen Laird. Been missing for 3 weeks. The dog's name is Logan. Rachel looked at Sam. Everything inside her stilled. And that night, as darkness wrapped around the clinic, Logan walked to Rachel's bedside for the first time, laid his head on her leg, and slept. No trembling, no alertness. Just sleep, as if, after everything, he had finally found the one place he believed was home. Sometimes a dog isn't just looking for home, it's looking for the truth. The small town of Oak Ridge had never made national headlines. Not for crime, not for scandal, just pine trees, a 2-pump gas station, and the kind of neighbors who still brought over soup when someone was sick. But that was before Logan arrived, before the name Owen Laird stirred a storm beneath the stillness. Rachel sat alone in her office that evening, the envelope Sam had handed her earlier still unopened beside her keyboard. Outside, a storm was rolling in, clouds hanging heavy and low, matching the tension she felt in her chest. She opened the file. Owen Laird, age 34, software engineer. Formerly with Essentia Tech, last seen 3 weeks ago by a neighbor who claimed he was packing his car at 2 a.m. Inside the envelope, a photo. A man in a hoodie kneeling beside a German shepherd. Not just any shepherd. Logan. But it wasn't Logan's stance or Owen's smile that struck her. It was the background. A forest clearing with what looked like a satellite dish, barely visible in the blur, definitely not someone's backyard. She called Sam. "That photo," she said. "It wasn't taken in Oak Ridge, was it?" Sam hesitated. "No." "That came from Owen's missing persons report filed in Redmond. Police flagged it but didn't dig. No signs of foul play, no credit card use since. Just vanished." Rachel exhaled. "Can you get me anything from Essentia Tech?" Sam chuckled darkly. "You're asking me to dig into one of the most secretive AI startups in the Pacific Northwest." "That'll raise some eyebrows." "Then wear a hat," she snapped. "This isn't just about a man, or even a dog." Something's off. Back at the clinic, Ethan watched Logan pacing again, this time with purpose. He walked to the window, then to the far corner, then back. Over and over. "He's mapping," Ethan muttered. "What do you mean?" Maya asked. "He's recreating something," Ethan said. "I've seen working dogs do this when they're separated from their environment. He's laying out a mental grid." Rachel walked in. "I think we're dealing with a cover-up," she said. "I need both of you to see something." She showed them the X-ray again, the small metallic device in Logan's abdomen. Ethan leaned forward. "We need to take that out." "But what if he doesn't survive the surgery?" Maya asked. Rachel's voice softened. then we're leaving him with something inside him that could have saved lives, or at the very least, told us what really happened to Owen. Ethan didn't answer. He just placed his hand gently on Logan's back. "What do you think, soldier?" Logan didn't flinch. Instead, he walked over to Rachel and sat down. The surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. They prepped Logan gently, Rachel's hands steady but her stomach in knots. Maya monitored vitals. Ethan double-checked anesthesia. Sam waited outside, pacing like an expectant father. Rachel made the incision with the delicacy of a sculptor. Minutes passed like hours, and then she saw it. A polymer casing about the size of a pen cap nestled beside Logan's stomach lining. No infection, no rejection. Just silence. They extracted it, sealed the wound, and Logan was resting before sunrise touched the window. Ethan turned the device over in his hands. "Looks custom. No ports, just wireless transmission pads." "Like a dead drop." "What the hell was Owen hiding?" Maya asked. Rachel didn't answer. She stared at Logan. "No. What was he protecting?" That afternoon, Sam returned with news. "I pulled Owen's old employee record from Essentia," he said. "He was lead on a classified project codenamed Aurora. It was scrapped 6 months ago." "No reason listed?" "Aurora?" Rachel asked. "Like the lights?" Sam shrugged. "Or like a weapon?" "No one knows. The only thing Owen said publicly was in a private message to a colleague. I quote, 'They want to use the dogs.'" "I said no. They made me disappear instead." Maya gasped. "They want to use them." "For what?" Rachel's mind reeled. Then she looked at Logan, sleeping soundly. He was trying to smuggle something out. But he couldn't carry it himself, so he entrusted it to the only one he believed could make it out alive. Ethan nodded. "A working dog?" "Trained to evade, survive, obey a silent command." "And never eat," Rachel whispered, finally understanding. Because he wasn't starving, he was following protocol. The next morning, Logan stood. Not staggered, not wobbly. He stood like a soldier reporting for duty. Rachel opened the clinic door. "Let's see where you want to go." No leash, no collar. Just Logan. He walked out, turned toward the forest, and didn't look back to check if they followed, because he knew they would. That night, Rachel and Ethan loaded gear. Maya stayed behind to monitor the signal from the device, now embedded in a lead-shielded pouch. Logan led them into the forest. Not down a trail, but through dense brush, over logs, across a stream. After 2 hours, he stopped. A rusted fence. Overgrown, half buried in moss. But behind it, a concrete hatch. "Jesus," Ethan muttered. "This looks military." Rachel felt her breath catch. Logan stepped forward and sat beside it. Not barking, waiting, Ethan knelt and brushed away leaves near the edge of the hatch. Letters carved into the stone, Aurora 03. And in that moment, with thunder rumbling in the distance and lightning tracing the edge of the mountains, Rachel understood. This wasn't just about a hungry dog. This was about what he refused to let die with his master. By midnight, the hatch was open. The rusted wheel groaned in protest, decades of moss and moisture fighting to keep its secrets buried. Ethan strained, muscles trembling, until with a final grind, the seal cracked open and a gust of stale, metallic air poured out. They descended slowly, Rachel first, flashlight slicing through the dark like a scalpel. Logan followed, his body alert, ears twitching. Every step deeper into the concrete tunnel felt like moving through time into someone else's nightmare. At the bottom, a room. No bigger than a cabin, but lined with rows of rusted filing cabinets and dusty monitors. Most were dead, screens shattered, keys ripped away. but one small panel on the far wall blinked faintly green. Rachel stepped toward it. "What the hell is this place?" Ethan whispered. "Looks like a data hub," Rachel replied, brushing off the monitor. "But why hide it? Why bury it out here?" Logan circled the room once, then he stopped. Not in fear, in recognition. He walked toward the corner where a filing drawer was slightly ajar, and pawed it. Once, twice, Rachel knelt, pulled it open. Inside was a sealed hard drive wrapped in foil, next to a photo of Owen, older, tired, his arms slung around Logan, scribbled in faded ink. "If this reaches you, trust the dog. He knows what they did." They brought the drive back to the clinic under full blackout. Sam, ever the sleuth, had already rerouted the clinic's router through a VPN and a military-grade firewall. "I don't know what's on here," he said, "but if Owen risked everything to get it out, we're not uploading it anywhere public." Rachel handed him the device. "Just find out what he died for." While Sam worked, Rachel knelt beside Logan again. "You knew exactly where that place was," she whispered. "Even after all this time, you waited." Logan blinked slowly, resting his head on her knee. "Not just loyalty. A promise kept." At 2 a.m., Sam's voice cracked through the clinic like thunder. "Guys," he called, breathless. "You need to see this." They gathered around the screen. Footage flickered to life, grainy, time-stamped. Inside a lab, glass walls, fluorescent lights, and dogs. Rows of them, German shepherds, Malinois. All standing at attention, motionless. Too motionless. Then Owen's voice. "They've integrated the neural uplink. The AI responds before the handler even speaks. They say it's for search and rescue, but I've seen the simulations. It's combat ready. Target acquisition based on scent, heat, and biometric signatures. No consent, no fallback." The video skipped forward. Now Owen stood alone, staring into the camera. "If you're watching this, they shut me down. They took Logan. But he got out. Somehow. Maybe the others will too. Just promise me, don't let them turn love into obedience. Don't let them make soldiers out of souls." The video ended. Silence fell like a shroud. Ethan broke it first. "This is beyond tech. This is war ethics." Rachel nodded, her voice like gravel. "And they used Logan as their prototype." Maya was trembling. "And we've been calling him a stray." Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere far off, thunder cracked again. But inside the clinic, a decision had already formed. "This can't stay buried," Rachel said. "People need to know." Ethan rubbed his face. "You're talking about whistleblowing on a defense contractor. I'm talking about justice," she snapped. "For Owen, for Logan. For every soul in that lab." Sam looked up from the terminal. "I can get this drive to someone. Quietly. But once it's out there, there's no going back." Rachel turned to Logan. "What do you think?" He didn't move, but his tail thumped. Once. A soldier's salute. That morning, Logan stood on the back porch of the clinic, watching the fog lift from the pines. He had carried pain in silence, carried secrets in his stomach, but now he had given them everything. Maya joined him quietly. "They'll be coming for us now, won't they?" Rachel stepped outside, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "Let them come," she said, her gaze locked on the tree line. "We're not the ones hiding anymore." The storm rolled in heavy over Sycamore Ridge. Rain slapped the windows of the clinic like it had a score to settle. Rachel sat at the computer, her fingers trembling slightly as she clicked through folder after folder on the decrypted hard drive. Everything they had uncovered in the hatch, the recordings, the footage of Owen, the horrific clips of what had been done to Logan, was just the surface. Now they were seeing the spine of the machine, the full scope of Aurora. "What is this?" Maya asked, leaning in. "Code names?" Sam peered closer, eyes narrowing. "These are subjects. Look, unit IDs, genetic markers, behavioral overrides. This isn't just Logan. There were dozens, maybe hundreds." Rachel clicked on one labeled Project SY21. A window opened. "Breed, Belgian Malinois. Name, KAI. Status, missing. Last location, New Mexico, testing grounds. Handler, CPT, Declan Hayes. Neural sync. Unstable result. Deemed a threat to command structure. Recommended termination." Rachel's stomach flipped. They marked him for death. Just because he disobeyed? Or remembered something he shouldn't have? Sam muttered. Another folder. Logan RX. She opened it. What they saw next made her gasp. A live tracker, a blinking red dot, still active. "Wait," Maya said. "This signal, that's here. That's inside the clinic." Rachel's blood ran cold. "They're tracking him." Sam bolted upright. "If that pinged a satellite, we've got maybe an hour before someone's boots hit that front door." They scrambled into action. Ethan cut the circuit breakers. Every last light in the clinic died, bathing the rooms in thick shadows. Sam grabbed a Faraday blanket, wrapping it around the hard drive and Logan's collar. Rachel pulled the emergency bag from under the operating table. Documents, burner phones, unmarked keys. "Go bag?" Maya asked, wide-eyed. "I've seen too much to not keep one," Rachel replied. Logan sat by the door, calm but alert. His ears twitched once, then twice. He already knew. They weren't safe anymore. They moved fast. By the time the first unmarked SUV crept up Sycamore Ridge Road, the group was already winding down the maintenance trail behind the clinic, covered by the storm and the thick pine fog. They made it to Ethan's cabin, deep in the woods, built like a bunker, no connection to anything but a hand-pumped well and an old wood stove. "You think they'll raid the clinic?" Maya asked, shivering as she unwrapped her soaked jacket. "They won't find anything," Rachel said. "We wiped everything, and we've still got the drive." Sam lit a kerosene lantern and cracked open his laptop, working off-grid. "Okay, Logan wasn't the only one who got out." According to this, there were 4 others who broke protocol and vanished during the shutdown. The last one, SY17, a female, codenamed Echo. "Where?" Rachel asked. Sam pulled up a map. "Outside of Phoenix, Arizona, Desert Wildlife Refuge." "She was last spotted near a reservation but went off-grid months ago." Ethan whistled low. "A war dog living off instinct in the desert? She's either gone feral or waiting for someone." Rachel looked at Logan. "Think she'll remember?" Logan tilted his head. Rachel nodded. "Then that's where we go." The drive west was long, dry, and full of questions. They took Ethan's unregistered Jeep, no plates, no GPS, and rotated drivers in shifts. Logan sat in the back, head resting on Maya's lap, as if he knew this was no normal road trip. Something inside him had shifted. The hunger had returned, not for food, but for answers. Rachel flipped through Owen's old field notes during one of her turns riding shotgun. Most pages were coded, written in abbreviations and numbers. But one stuck out, scribbled in pencil, half-torn. "The dogs remember. The AI wants to forget." "What do you think it means?" she asked aloud. "Maybe that's the whole war," Ethan replied. "Between those who remember and those who wish they didn't." 3 days later, they reached the edge of the Tonto National Forest, where dust devils danced along cracked roads and nothing moved without purpose. They met a man named Jace, half Apache, half mystery, who ran a rescue ranch for abandoned canines on tribal land. Rachel showed him the photo of Echo. He went still. "I seen her once," he said, squinting toward the ridge. 2 years ago. She didn't come close, just watched, eyes like embers. Moved like she'd been trained by ghosts. "She still alive?" Maya asked. Jace nodded. "She's out there. Comes down to drink every few weeks. Never crosses the dry riverbed, like she's guarding something." That night, Logan stood by the fire while coyotes howled in the distance. He didn't bark, didn't move, only his breathing changed. He knew. She was near. Rachel stepped beside him, hand brushing his fur. "You ready, soldier?" Logan didn't answer, but in the flicker of flamelight, his shadow stretched long across the sand, reaching, calling. The next morning, the Arizona sun came up mean and hard. Rachel stood outside Jace's cabin with a mug of coffee, watching the red dust swirl around the mesquite trees. Logan was already awake, sitting alert at the edge of the bluff, staring into the canyon like it held secrets only he could hear. Jace joined her, nodding silently. "You think she'll come back?" Rachel asked. "She never left," he said. "She's been circling this ridge longer than I've lived here. You just don't see her unless she wants to be seen." There was a long pause, the kind that settles only in places where time has a slower rhythm, he keyed. "I think they talk to each other," Jace added. "In some way, not words." "Something older?" Rachel turned to look at Logan. His body was still. His ears twitched once. Twice, he was listening. They set a motion-triggered camera by the creek that afternoon, with Maya using a mixture of canned dog food and old meat Jace had stored in his smokehouse. It was a gamble. If Echo was still in the area, the scent might draw her out. Logan paced near the water for hours. Not waiting, watching. A low rumble would escape his throat now and then, but he made no sound otherwise. He was searching for a presence he once knew, something deep in his bones. That night the camera caught her, just a blur at first, then 2 amber eyes. She hadn't approached the food, she hadn't touched the water, but she stood there motionless, staring at the camera like she knew it was there. Then, just before slipping back into the trees, she turned her head and looked toward where Logan had been standing hours before. The next day, Rachel and Maya followed Logan on foot. They said nothing as they hiked. Logan seemed to know the trail before they did, weaving between boulders and cactus, following a scent only he could sense. The further they went, the quieter it became. No birds. No wind, just the hush of the desert, heavy with memory. At the crest of a bluff, Logan stopped. There, in the shade of a jagged rock formation, stood Echo. Her fur was rough, streaked with dust and time, but her stance was unmistakable, shoulders tight, eyes sharp, muscles coiled like a question. Her ears flicked once when she saw Logan. She didn't bark, didn't growl. She just stared. Rachel took a careful step forward. "Hey, girl," she whispered. "You remember him?" Echo didn't move. Then Logan stepped ahead. He didn't rush. Didn't show teeth. He walked slowly, carefully, like he was approaching something sacred. When he stopped just a foot away from her, they stood eye to eye. Then Echo did something none of them expected. She lowered her head just a little, just enough, and touched her nose to his. That night they brought Echo back to Jace's ranch. She didn't eat, she didn't sleep, but she stayed. The files from Aurora made more sense now. Rachel and Sam reviewed them by the firelight, lines of data beginning to feel more like names in a memorial wall. "There were 18 dogs in the Echo protocol," Sam said, flipping pages. "Logan was RX-12, Echo was SY-17, 4 confirmed dead, 2 missing. That leaves 12. 12 still out there?" Maya asked. Rachel closed her eyes. "No, 12 with implants." "Implants?" Ethan's voice dropped. Neural suppressors, buried under bone, near the base of the skull, Rachel said. We never saw them in Logan's scans because they shut down when he broke containment. But Echo still has hers active. Maya looked at the dog curled up in the shadows. That's why she won't eat. Rachel nodded. It's suppressing more than hunger. It's blocking parts of her instinct, herself. The decision was made the next morning. They would operate. It was dangerous. The device was wired into nerve clusters. One wrong move could paralyze her, or worse. But Echo was dying slowly anyway, and Logan never left her side, as if he knew what she was going through. As if he remembered, the team prepped a makeshift surgical table inside Jace's barn. Sam set up a sterile field using supplies Rachel had packed from the clinic. Maya stayed by Echo's head, whispering calm reassurances, while Logan lay just inches away, unmoving. Rachel took a deep breath, then cut. The surgery lasted 3 hours. Sweat poured down Rachel's forehead. Her hands never shook. Not once. When she removed the implant, a tiny black shard the size of a grapeseed, Echo flinched, then went utterly still. They all held their breath. Then, slowly, Echo opened her eyes, and for the first time since they found her, she licked Maya's hand. Later that night, Sam held the implant in his palm, staring. "Why would they do this?" he muttered. Rachel sat beside him, exhaustion in every bone. "Because they wanted soldiers, not souls." "They underestimated both," Ethan said quietly, nodding toward Logan and Echo sleeping together by the hearth. "They always do," Rachel whispered. But peace didn't last long. That same night, while Rachel stepped outside for air, her satellite phone buzzed. A single encrypted message. "You're not the only ones looking." The morning after the surgery, Logan and Echo moved like shadows stitched together. Rachel watched from the porch as the two dogs made silent loops around the cabin, never straying too far, never letting the other out of sight. Something had shifted. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was remembrance. Inside, the rest of the team gathered around a map of the southwestern United States. Red pins, yellow notes, and blurred photographs covered a 5-state radius. Sam had spent most of the night decoding the Aurora logs they'd pulled from Echo's implant. It was a mess of data. Time-stamped shipments, coded kennel IDs, cross-border veterinary licenses. But one thing was clear. There were more dogs, more like Echo. More like Logan. More still wearing the collar of silence. "Look at this," Sam said, tapping a printout. 3 dogs shipped out of Flagstaff 6 months before Aurora was decommissioned. Destination, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Vet listed as a doctor. "Thorn doesn't exist," Rachel said immediately. "I checked the registry years ago. That license was revoked in 2009. "Exactly," Sam replied. "But what if he never left? What if he just kept working? Under a new name?" Ethan leaned over the table. "How many dogs do you think we're talking about?" Rachel paused, then said, 6, maybe 7. Not all of them made it. But if we find even one, they'll lead us to the rest," Maya finished. They split into 2 teams. Rachel, Logan, and Maya would head to New Mexico. Sam and Jace would run digital tracking and scan for odd vet licenses or black market activity, especially anything involving neural suppression tech. As Rachel packed the van, Logan hopped into the passenger seat without needing to be called. Echo stood by the rear bumper, hesitant. Rachel crouched. "You coming, girl?" Echo stepped forward, slowly, one paw at a time. Then, in a move that made Maya's throat catch, she rested her head gently against Rachel's knee. It was a yes. They rolled into Rio Rancho 3 days later. The city was a dust-blown mix of strip malls and old farm roads where tumbleweeds still had authority and nothing moved too fast. The address on file led them to a boarded-up animal clinic with a faded sign that read, "Healthy Tales, Boarding and Grooming." The windows were covered in newspaper. The mailbox was overflowing, but Logan stood still at the front door, his ears perked. His stance stiffened. Then he growled, low. Deep, from somewhere ancient, Rachel drew her sidearm, motioned Maya to flank left. Echo, though unsure, followed Logan's lead. The door creaked open. Inside, the clinic smelled like bleach and old secrets. Cabinets were emptied, files burned in barrels out back, but something lingered, a hum, an energy. In the back room, they found a kennel. Empty. But scratched. Deep gouges lined the walls, metal bolts bent. One broken IV stand lay twisted on the floor. There was fur in the corner, short, bristled, and stained with something too dark to be dirt. "Someone broke out," Maya whispered. "Or was never meant to survive," Rachel said. Logan sniffed the air. His body moved like a compass. Then he bolted. They followed him 6 blocks to an abandoned trailer parked behind a mechanic's lot. Inside, they found her. A black Belgian Malinois curled up in a corner, ribs visible beneath her skin. Her eyes flicked open, and she bared her teeth, weakly. "She's scared," Maya said softly. Rachel knelt, holding her hands low. Logan didn't wait. He walked up, silent as dusk, and sat beside the dog. He didn't look at her, just faced the door, as if to say, "You're safe now." She looked at him. Then slowly, achingly, she lay her head against his shoulder. They named her Nova. It wasn't clear if she remembered her name from before, but she responded to it now. She walked again after a week, ate small meals, even wagged her tail once when Maya brought her an old squeaky toy. But there was something else, a scar behind her ear. Echo had one too. Rachel took X-rays in a makeshift clinic set up in their motel room. What she saw chilled her. Not one, not two. Nova had 3 implants. "What the hell were they doing to her?" Maya asked. Rachel didn't answer. She didn't have to. That night, a black SUV parked outside their motel. No lights, no plates. Rachel and Maya spotted it from the 2nd floor. Logan and Echo had already taken guard positions near the stairs. Nova crouched low by the bed, trembling. Rachel picked up her phone. "Sam, we've been made." 2 hours later, the SUV was gone, but taped to the windshield of Rachel's van was a photo. Black and white, 3 dogs in cages, one of them Logan. Another, Nova, and a third, unknown. But the handwriting scrawled beneath the photo made Rachel's stomach turn. "She's next." They weren't just chasing ghosts anymore. Now they were being hunted, and the next dog wasn't a rescue, she was bait. Rachel didn't sleep that night, neither did Logan. She sat on the edge of the motel bed, the photo still clutched in her hand, the words, "She's next," burning behind her eyes. Nova paced the narrow room, tail low, ears twitching at every creak of the hallway outside. Echo stood sentry by the door. Maya, exhausted, had fallen asleep, fully dressed, one arm wrapped protectively around her backpack of gear. The glow of a street lamp lit up the plastic blinds just enough for Rachel to see Logan move. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't resting. He was watching Nova, studying her, or maybe remembering something. By dawn, Sam had decrypted more data. It wasn't just Rio Rancho. Aurora hadn't been one facility. It was a network, dotted across the country, hidden inside abandoned vet clinics, old canine training academies, and even mobile rescue vans. And the worst part, "They're still operating," Sam said flatly over the phone. "Different name, different funding." But same signature. Rachel stared at the map. "How many?" 7 active sites, possibly more. All with matching supply drops and medical equipment invoices that don't go through any official distributor. Who's behind it now? Sam paused. The money traces back to a front company, registered out of Barrow, Alaska. Alaska? Maya asked. That's random. Rachel's voice was low. Not if you're trying to hide things where nobody looks. They weren't ready for Alaska yet. Not without more dogs. More proof. They needed to make the world care. Rachel put in a call to her old handler from the Army Veterinary Corps, Colonel Dane Mitchell. If anyone still had clearance high enough to raise alarm bells, it was him. "You're chasing ghosts, Parker," Mitchell said through the phone, "and ghosts are expensive. I've got implants. Dogs with memory wipes, neural control devices. I've got a list of off-the-book surgeries done by retired military doctors." Mitchell sighed. "And what do you want me to do? Storm some run-down vet office with a badge and a warrant?" "No. I want you to look at the dogs." "Just one. Look her in the eyes and tell me this country didn't fail her." There was silence. Then, "You've got 1 hour." "I'm flying into Durango. Bring her there." Nova's transport to Colorado was quiet. Rachel held her leash in the back of the SUV while Maya drove. Logan sat at Nova's side the whole ride, head up, alert, like a soldier on duty. Nova rested her head on his paw. "She trusts him," Maya whispered. "She should," Rachel replied. "He's the only one who made it out." Colonel Mitchell met them in a hangar near a decommissioned airfield. Gray beard, sharply pressed uniform, and eyes that said he'd seen too many things you don't talk about over drinks. He didn't speak at first. Just kneeled in front of Nova, placed a hand gently on her chest, then lifted her ear, then froze. After a long silence, he stood. "I know this tech." "You should," Rachel said. "It came from DARPA." Mitchell looked older in that moment than Rachel had ever seen. "I signed off on these dogs 10 years ago. They were meant for wartime only. Strict deployment rules." "No civilians, no long-term trauma imprinting. You think they followed that?" Maya asked. Mitchell didn't answer. He just turned to Logan. "And you?" Logan looked up at him, and for the first time, Mitchell's voice cracked. "God forgive us." That night, Colonel Mitchell issued an encrypted report to 2 former Pentagon officials. One responded within the hour, the other didn't. Because he was dead, found in a parking garage in Santa Fe, his phone missing. His car burned, and a single word scratched into the concrete wall above his body: "Obey." Rachel didn't tell Nova or Logan. Not yet. But deep down, she knew what was coming. The men behind Aurora weren't just covering their tracks. They were starting over, and this time, they had better funding, newer tech. And no conscience left. Rachel stepped out into the cold Colorado night, phone still in her hand. Echo padded up beside her, quiet as always. "What now?" Maya asked from the porch. Rachel didn't hesitate. "We find the girl." "The one from the photo," Rachel nodded. "She's the last piece, the only one who might remember everything." Maya's voice was hushed. "And if she's already gone?" Rachel looked up at the stars. "Then we make sure the world never forgets her." The girl's name was Sadie Quinn, and she hadn't spoken a word in 2 years, not since the fire, not since the last time Nova had seen her, through the bars of a crate bolted shut inside a white unmarked van. Back then, Sadie was just a name on a clipboard, a file marked promising neural sync and a stack of classified documents, but to Nova, she was more. Nova remembered her scent. Her voice, the way Sadie's hand would shake when she patted her fur, not from fear, but from something deeper, something broken. She was the last child Aurora tested. And maybe the only one still alive. The trail led them to a rural town called Brush Creek, nestled deep in the canyonlands of Utah. Population 903. Cell signal unreliable. People suspicious of outsiders. The kind of place where everyone knew your secrets, but no one ever told them. Rachel, Maya, and Logan pulled into town in a dusty SUV that looked like it hadn't been washed since the Bush administration. Echo lay in the back seat, Nova beside him, eyes scanning the horizon like a war veteran returning to a battlefield. They weren't welcome, not here. And especially not with dogs that looked like they could tear through steel. Their first stop was the only diner in town, Maureen's Cafe. As Rachel stepped inside, the bell over the door jingled. Heads turned, forks stopped mid-air. An old man by the counter muttered something under his breath. A teenage boy dropped his milkshake, but Rachel kept walking, straight to the counter. She ordered black coffee. Maya sat beside her. Logan stood at the door. And Nova sat right at Rachel's heel, silent, unmoving, but ready. "Y'all from the city?" the waitress asked. "Nope," Rachel said, sipping her coffee. "We're from the truth." It took 3 more hours and a lot of closed doors before someone finally spoke. A woman named Callie Turner, the town's librarian. She didn't say much, but what she did say was enough to rattle them. "There's a house," she whispered, glancing around like someone might be listening. "Up near the ridge. No one goes there." "Not since the incident 2 years ago." "What kind of incident?" Rachel asked. Callie swallowed. "They say a little girl lived there." "Barely spoke, slept with the dogs, wouldn't eat human food." "Her parents disappeared, and then one night, fire." Rachel leaned in. "And the girl?" "Gone," Callie said. "But some folks swear they still hear her scream at night." They drove to the ridge in silence. It was nearly sunset. The road was barely a road, just gravel and sagebrush, and the cabin at the top looked more like a ruin than a home. Windows blown out, charred beams, a swing set rusting in the wind. And claw marks on the walls, deep, long, unnatural. Nova whined the moment they stepped out of the SUV. Echo growled. Rachel unslung her rifle, and Logan, he froze. "She's here," he said. "How do you know?" Maya asked. He didn't answer. He just pointed toward the crawl space beneath the cabin. The girl was hiding in a space no bigger than a rabbit hole, her eyes wide, feral and hollow. Her hair was matted, her shirt torn. One foot was bare, but it was her. Sadie Quinn. Rachel crouched slowly. "Hey there. Sadie, right? We're not here to hurt you." No answer. "Nova remembers you." Nova stepped forward, tail low, ears back. Sadie didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then, a tremble in her lip, a flicker of recognition. She reached a hand out, shaky, unsure, and touched Nova's snout. And then she sobbed, a sound that didn't belong to a child. It belonged to someone who had seen too much. That night they camped in the cabin. Rachel patched Sadie's cuts. Maya made warm food. Logan kept watch. And Nova never left her side. When Sadie finally fell asleep, clutching Echo's fur like a blanket, Maya whispered, "How is she still alive?" Rachel didn't answer. Because the truth was, Sadie had been trained, programmed, conditioned to survive in conditions no child should ever face. Just like the dogs. Rachel sent video to Colonel Mitchell, footage of Sadie. Of her interacting with Nova. Of her frozen, trembling face when she whispered her first words in 2 years. "They locked me with the broken ones." Mitchell called within the hour. "You need to move." "Now." "Why?" "Because you found her. And if they know that, they'll come." "Who's they?" whatever Aurora has become. Whoever's running it now, they don't want a survivor. Just before dawn, headlights appeared on the ridge. 3 vehicles, unmarked, no plates. Rachel grabbed her rifle. Logan drew his pistol. Maya armed herself with a tranq gun. Nova and Echo stood poised at the door. Sadie, trembling, whispered one word. "Run." Rachel turned to her. "Not this time, sweetheart." She chambered around. "We fight!" The 3 black SUVs didn't stop. They crept forward in slow unison, engines idling like beasts stalking prey in tall grass. Their windows were tinted pitch black. No logos, no markings, no lights. Just silence. Then doors opened. 6 men stepped out. All dressed the same, tactical vests, earpieces. M4s cradled in their arms, movements too smooth to be local law enforcement. Rachel squinted through her scope from the cabin's upper window. "Private contractors, not locals, no insignia." Maya stood beside her, holding the tranquilizer rifle. "Aurora?" Logan nodded grimly. Or what's left of it. On the floor below, Sadie clung to Nova like a lifeline. The girl's breathing turned shallow. Her knuckles white against Nova's collar. "I know them," she whispered. "The tall one. He called me Subject 13. Rachel's stomach turned. They're not taking her again. The cabin only had 2 viable exits, the front porch and the shattered kitchen window. Rachel mapped it out quickly in her head. We split. "Maya, you take Echo and Sadie through the creek bed. Logan, cover their flank from the trees. Nova's with me." "We hold the front." "What about backup?" Logan asked. "There is no backup." Rachel checked her rifle one last time, then knelt by Sadie. "You run. No matter what you hear, don't stop. Understand?" Sadie hesitated, eyes darting between Nova and Rachel. Then she nodded. Gunfire cracked through the dawn like thunder. Logan took out the first intruder with a clean shoulder shot from behind the sycamores. Echo barked a warning as a second man charged toward the creek path, only to meet Maya's dart square in the throat. He dropped instantly, legs twitching in dry leaves. But they kept coming. Rachel fired in short bursts, pushing the remaining 4 into cover behind an overturned pickup near the trail. Nova moved like lightning, darting out to distract, then vanishing into brush. One of the gunmen screamed, dropping his rifle as Nova tore the radio clean off his vest. Then, radio chatter. "Alpha 6 down. Repeat. Nova is active. Target is hostile." "Switch to contingency plan. Lethal authorization granted." Rachel's eyes went wide. "They're going hot!" Suddenly, a red flare shot into the sky. It wasn't from the enemy. It was from Logan. He was signaling danger. More incoming. Maya, gripping Sadie's hand, turned in time to see a 4th vehicle cresting the ridge. A tactical van, same unmarked style, but this one had a symbol spray-painted on the back. L13. Sadie's face went pale. "That's the cage." Maya raised her tranquilizer gun again, but it was too late. A sonic pulse burst from the van, knocking Echo flat and shattering the glass in Rachel's cabin. The dogs yelped in pain. Logan clutched his ears, blood trickling from one side. Sadie screamed. Rachel didn't hesitate. She charged straight down the slope toward the van, bullets clipping past her ears. Nova flanked right, snarling, bleeding, but focused. Inside the van, a figure emerged, masked in full neural armor. Not just a handler, a controller. He raised a wristband toward Sadie. "Return to neutral state. Obey protocol." Sadie fell to her knees, screaming in pain, clawing at her temples. "No!" Rachel shouted. "Don't listen to him!" But the girl's body convulsed, something inside her brain responding to signals she couldn't control. Nova lunged. The controller turned. Too late. Nova collided with him mid-command, knocking him backward into the dirt, tearing the device clean from his wrist. The signal died. Sadie gasped for air and went still. They didn't win the fight, but they bought time. The rest of the contractors retreated once their controller fell. No more commands, no more sync. Rachel dragged the man's body into the brush, stripped the armor plate, and pulled the mask off. Underneath was a face she recognized, not from the battlefield. From Langley, Dr. Milo Frey, former behavioral engineer, ex-Aurora lead scientist, presumed dead. Rachel whispered, "They didn't just restart the program, they evolved it." And Sadie? She stood, barefoot in the dirt, hair tangled, blood crusted on her lip, and said, "They're not coming for me. They're coming for all of us." The morning mist clung low over the hills of Brush Creek, Montana, rolling like a ghost across the asphalt. It would have been beautiful, if not for the drone that buzzed overhead like a mosquito on steroids, scanning rooftops for heat signatures. Rachel stood on the roof of the town library, binoculars to her eyes, her breath clouding in the crisp mountain air. Below her, Brush Creek wasn't waking up. It was bracing for war. "You've got 2 hours," Sheriff Dean Harper said behind her, his voice tight with urgency. "After that, I can't hold back the National Guard. They think this is domestic terrorism. You'll be on your own." Rachel turned, her face hard. "If we don't hold them off now, they'll wipe this town off the map. That little girl, they're not just after her. They want to erase every trace she ever existed." Dean hesitated. Then he nodded and passed her a set of blueprints. "The old mine shaft beneath Main Street? Use it." It hasn't collapsed. Yet. Down below, in the library's basement, Sadie sat in a folding chair, a thick cable wrapped loosely around her wrist. Not for restraint, but for connection. Logan was rerouting the power grid. Maya monitored comms. Echo and Nova stood watch beside Sadie like twin statues. "She's stabilizing," Maya whispered, reading Sadie's vitals on the tablet. Whatever Milo tried to activate in her brain, it's not fully shut down. Rachel knelt. "Sadie, look at me." Sadie looked up, her eyes no longer glassy. "They're bringing others," she said. "Children like me, I saw them. In my dreams." "In the cage. Some didn't survive." "How many?" Rachel asked. Sadie's lip trembled. 9. I heard one screaming my name. I think she was my sister." Outside, Brush Creek transformed into a maze of resistance. The townspeople weren't soldiers, but they remembered how to defend what mattered. Farmers turned tractors into barricades. Ranchers herded cattle down logging roads to block access points. High schoolers delivered coffee and canned soup between lookout posts. No one questioned why. They all knew. This wasn't just about one girl. It was about not letting the government, or whatever private entity Aurora had become, erase them. At 11:07 a.m., the sky split open. A tilt-rotor aircraft roared overhead, kicking up dust and rattling every window in town. Then came the drones, swarms of them, buzzing like wasps with weapons mounted beneath their bellies. Rachel shouted into the radio, "They're here!" Boom! The first explosion rocked the old train station, ripping through a fuel depot set up as a decoy. Smoke billowed and the contractors surged in, black-clad and faceless. Rachel, Logan, and Maya split. Nova and Echo moved through alleyways with surgical precision, nipping ankles, knocking rifles from hands, retreating into shadows. They weren't just dogs. They were ghosts with teeth. In the church bell tower, Maya spotted something that made her blood run cold. "Rachel, we've got movement behind the grocery store. 4 unmarked vans, same logo. L13. Deploy gas?" Logan asked. "Negative," Rachel snapped. "They've got kids inside." Maya's breath caught. Are you sure? I saw them. Faces in the rear windows, no older than Sadie. Logan cursed. Then this isn't an attack. It's an exchange. They're planning to use the kids to draw her out, Maya said. Rachel's hands tightened on her rifle. Then we flipped the script. She radioed the town. All units, new objective, rescue and extract, north flank. We leave no child behind, the townspeople answered. Farm hands dropped irrigation tools and picked up bolt cutters. The pastor from First Baptist drove his truck straight through one of the vans, shielding the kids inside with his own body as bullets tore through his windshield. Nova leapt through the shattered back window, licking a boy's face and pulling him free by the hoodie. Echo herded 3 others into the arms of local EMTs. One of the children, a girl with scars down both arms, looked up at Rachel as she knelt beside her. "You're Sadie's protector," she said, like it was a title. Rachel blinked back tears. "I am now." But not all of them made it out. The last van exploded before anyone reached it. The fireball lit up the town square like a sunrise from hell. Maya screamed. Logan dragged her back. Rachel dropped to her knees as shrapnel rained from the sky. And Sadie somehow knew. "They just killed Lucy," she whispered. "She was my sister." Her voice cracked. "They didn't even let her speak." Later, in the aftermath, Sheriff Dean stood amid the rubble, face streaked with soot. "They'll come again," he said, "with bigger guns, bigger lies." Rachel looked down at Sadie, wrapped in a blanket, sleeping in Nova's arms. "Then we make Brush Creek the one place they can't erase, a place that remembers," Dean grunted. "Hope you've got a hell of a memory." Rachel smiled weakly. "I've got 2. She glanced at Nova and Echo. They never forget. The smoke hadn't cleared, but the cries had begun. From every alley, every rooftop, every pickup truck turned into a barricade, there were voices. Some shouting names, some praying, some simply silent, staring into the void left by a blast that took one van full of children, and one piece of Sadie's heart with it. Rachel walked through the wreckage like someone moving through a dream. Her boots crunched over shattered glass and scorched asphalt. Nova limped beside her, his side grazed by shrapnel, but his ears still sharp, scanning for danger, always. Maya stood over a tarp-covered body. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. It was Pastor Bill, the same man who taught Sunday school to 3 generations, now lying still because he used his truck to stop a van full of children from being taken. Rachel knelt beside him, touched his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved them. I'll make sure they know." Back in the library basement, Logan held Sadie like she was made of porcelain. She hadn't spoken since the explosion. Just stared straight ahead, her little hands fisted into the collar of Echo's vest. Logan tried. "Sadie, we're going to find who did this. We're going to stop them." Her voice was so small he almost missed it. "No, you're not. They're not people anymore." He looked down. "They used to be," she said, "but Aurora changed them. I saw it. I saw their eyes, like broken glass. They don't hear crying anymore." Rachel stepped into the room, her face streaked with soot and grief. She didn't speak either, just walked to Sadie, crouched low, and held out her hand. "We're not leaving you," she said. "But we're not just going to protect you anymore. We're going to end this." That night, the survivors gathered at the town's only diner. The power was out, so they lit candles, spread blankets, and poured coffee brewed on camp stoves. Nova and Echo lay near the door, guarding like living shadows. Sheriff Dean stood up with a clipboard and a hollow look. "We've got 17 wounded. 3 confirmed dead, 1 missing." He paused. "But we also got 15 kids out alive." A quiet cheer went up, raw and weary. Rachel stepped forward. It's not over. We all know that. They'll come again, and next time they won't offer a van. They'll bring a drone strike. But we've got something they don't, Maya added. Each other. Suddenly, the radio crackled. Logan rushed over. It's not local. Wait, this frequency. He dialed in, adjusted. A voice came through, weak, strained. This is Dr. Olivia Park, former Aurora. If you're hearing this, they've activated Phase 3. They're moving to Iron Ridge facility. Coordinates 2 miles north of Brush Creek. Everyone froze. Rachel leaned over. Say again. Who is this? Silence. Then a final message. Tell the girl her mother didn't run. She was taken. The line went dead. The room pulsed with the weight of that final sentence. Sadie looked up from where she'd been curled in Maya's arms. My mom's alive? Rachel clenched her fists. We don't know yet. Yes, Sadie said with quiet certainty. She's calling me. In the dark. That's why they want me to forget. Sheriff Dean straightened. What's Iron Ridge? Rachel didn't hesitate. They're black site, off books, no oversight. It's where they kept the prototypes before they even knew what they were doing. Logan exhaled. And it's where we finish this. By midnight, the town had mobilized again, but this time not for defense, for war. They gathered maps, drones, and winter gear. The snow was already beginning to fall in thin, bitter flakes. Iron Ridge sat high above the timberline, built into the side of a sheer cliff once used by mining prospectors. You know what this means, Maya whispered to Rachel as they strapped vests over their shoulders. Yeah, Rachel nodded. We're not coming back the same. She glanced at Nova and Echo, who stood at Sadie's side like twin wolves sent from some ancient legend. We just better come back at all. As they left the diner, Sadie ran to Rachel and pulled something from her pocket, a folded drawing. It was a crayon picture of 2 dogs and a woman standing between mountains, beneath a red sun. I saw it in a dream, Sadie said. This is where we end it. Rachel looked down, then back at the mountain range to the north, and her voice was steady. Then that's where we go. The ascent to Iron Ridge wasn't marked on any map. It was the kind of path known only to ghosts, those who had built it, buried it, and never spoke of it again. The snow came sideways that morning, not falling but slicing, cutting across the face like regret. Each step was a choice, each breath a memory. Rachel Monroe led the way. Behind her, Maya carried a scoped rifle slung low across her back. Logan moved quietly, one hand on Sadie's shoulder. Nova and Echo trotted ahead, like sentinels born from ice and shadow. Sadie didn't complain once. She didn't speak much at all. But when the ridge came into view, her voice was clear. That's not a building. That's a scar. Iron Ridge was a bunker disguised as a mining site. Reinforced titanium panels, camera towers. A single door carved straight into a rock face, like a sealed secret. But what haunted them all was the sound. It wasn't an alarm. It was a hum, low, constant, mechanical. Like something breathing beneath the mountain. Rachel crouched behind a crag, scanning through binoculars. Thermals show 3 guards. But there's a sublayer underground. Logan frowned. How do you know? She handed him the binoculars. Because the heat doesn't rise. It pulses. Sadie stepped forward. They're waiting. They know we're coming. Maya glanced down. You sure about that? Sadie didn't flinch. They're not afraid of us. They're afraid of what I'll remember. The breach wasn't elegant. It wasn't even quiet. They sent Nova first, his silent signal guiding Rachel through a blind spot in the thermal fence. Then Maya took the outer guards. Logan wired the outer control box with a charge rigged from his drone battery. The door opened like the maw of some old beast, and they stepped inside. The hallway smelled like chlorine and static. The lights flickered, not out of power but out of protest. Every step echoed. Then the barking began, not from Nova. From cages, rows of them. Inside, dogs. Not ordinary dogs, military breeds, Belgian Malinois, shepherds, even a few hybrids, all scarred. All silent. Their ears twitched when Nova passed, like they recognized the bloodline in him. Rachel stopped. They were using them to test it. Test what? Logan asked. Sadie's whisper was like glass cracking. Mind erasure. They pushed deeper, until the air turned warmer, humid, artificial. In the center of the complex, a room glowed with surgical light. Inside stood a woman. She was tall, pale, dressed in a lab coat that looked like it hadn't been washed in days, but her face, Rachel froze. "Dr. Olivia Park," she breathed. The woman turned, and when she saw Sadie, she dropped the tablet in her hand. "You weren't supposed to find this place." Sadie stepped forward. "You worked with my mom." Dr. Park's eyes trembled. "I did more than that." She opened a nearby cabinet and pulled out a small sealed box. Inside was a memory chip. She uploaded everything. Every file, every warning. They erased her mind before she could leak it, but she gave me this. Said if her daughter ever showed up, I'd know. Sadie's hands shook as she took it. "Where is she?" Rachel asked. Dr. Park's silence answered everything. "She's here, isn't she?" They moved through a biometric door. Behind it, a cryopod. Frosted glass, a figure inside. Rachel wiped it clean. A woman, brown hair, thin hands curled slightly. Eyes closed, breathing shallow. Sadie whispered, "Mom?" "Doctor." Park nodded. They sedated her indefinitely, said she had mimetic instability, but what they feared was her love for you. It broke their protocols. Rachel leaned forward. "How do we wake her?" "You don't," Park said. "Not unless you want every Aurora drone in the sky on your tail." Maya pulled out her sidearm. "Then we take her anyway." Logan stepped in. "No, we do this right. We extract the data, broadcast it, burn the system from the inside." Sadie nodded. "We show them what they buried." While Logan hacked into the uplink, Rachel and Maya carried Sadie's mom out of the pod. Nova and Echo guarded the door as lights began to flash red. The system had caught on. Alarms wailed. Metal doors began to close. "We need 10 more seconds!" Logan shouted. Maya covered the hall. "You've got 5!" Echo lunged at the approaching guards, slamming one into a wall before retreating to protect the others. Nova flanked right, buying Rachel enough time to lift Sadie's mom over her shoulder. The memory chip clicked into the broadcast port. A screen lit up. Project Aurora, Emotional Memory Suppression Reprogramming Protocol. It played the video. Grainy footage of dogs being shocked, children being tested, soldiers being rewritten. Then the system collapsed. The power cut. But the damage was done. The world had seen. They didn't escape quietly. Helicopters rose above the ridge. Drones followed. But Brush Creek had already emptied, evacuated through the paths Rachel left behind. And in every town the footage reached, something broke open. Truth. And once truth bled out, there was no containing it. They buried the pod that once held Sadie's mom beneath a grove of red pines where the snow never stayed long. She would wake up eventually, Dr. Park promised. Not whole, not right away, but enough to remember her daughter. Enough to love her again. Sadie sat beside the stone, petting Nova. She used to call me her star. Rachel sat beside her. You still are. They moved like shadows through the ice. Rachel led them into the lower levels, each corridor colder, darker. The hum they'd first heard outside now throbbed like a heartbeat. Not mechanical anymore, it was alive. It pulsed with intention. And the dogs, they felt it. Nova's fur bristled. Echo growled low, like a warning not just to the humans, but to something deeper. Unseen, they turned a corner and froze. The hallway opened into a chamber filled with old televisions. Stacked floor to ceiling, all playing the same footage in a silent loop. Children staring at screens, soldiers blinking against strobe lights, and dogs, hooked to wires, their eyes wide, frozen, barely alive. Sadie whispered, "They weren't just erasing memory, they were rewriting it." Maya stepped forward. This is brainwashing." "No," Rachel said softly. "It's programming, just not code." "It's grief, trauma. It's using emotion as the trigger." On the center screen, footage changed. It was Sadie, a younger version, maybe 6, maybe 7. Crying, reaching out for something just off frame. Then, a hand. Her mother's. And the voice, "No matter what they tell you, you're mine." Sadie staggered back. "That's the last time I saw her awake," she whispered. "Before the lab. Before they took her." Behind them, a metallic hiss. "Closing. Move!" Logan shouted, grabbing Sadie. They ran, dogs sprinting ahead, ears pinned back. The hallway lights flickered red, then went dark. Footsteps thundered above, guards. "Not just security, full TAC teams." Logan ducked into a side room, slammed the door. They piled inside, barely large enough to fit the 5 of them and the 2 dogs. Then came the noise. Not a bang. A bark. One bark. Sharp, deep, commanding. Nova. He wasn't barking at the door, he was barking at the wall. Rachel turned. A hatch, barely visible, rimmed in frost. She yanked it open, revealing a vertical chute with metal rungs disappearing down into black. "We go." It was a blind descent. No rope, no idea what waited. Maya went first, then Sadie and Echo. Logan next. Rachel last, closing the hatch behind her as boots hammered down the hall. They dropped nearly 40 feet before the shaft widened into a crawl tunnel lit by soft blue glow strips. It wasn't part of the original base. It was older, pre-Aurora. Rachel's voice echoed, "This isn't a lab anymore. It's a tomb." They crawled through until it opened into a chamber unlike any they'd seen. Wooden walls. Books. A fire still smoldering in an old metal barrel. And in the corner, an old man sitting. Breathing, he opened one eye. "Took you long enough." His name was Caleb Monroe. Rachel's father. She hadn't seen him in 17 years. "Thought you were dead," she said. He chuckled. "I was, until they buried me in this mountain and forgot I knew where all the wires went." He stood slowly, bones cracking, eyes locked on Sadie. "You've got her eyes," Sadie blinked. "You knew my mom?" He nodded. "She saved my life." "Twice." Caleb walked to a rusted panel, flipped a switch. Screens lit up. Not the Aurora feed, but old surveillance. Hidden cameras. Data backups, all feeding into a single satellite relay. "You came for the truth, right?" "Well, here it is." He slid a drive toward Logan. "Upload that, and the whole world knows what this mountain's been hiding." Maya narrowed her eyes. "What's the catch?" "There's always one," he said. "This place is hardwired to a failsafe. Once that data leaves, the bunker goes full meltdown. You've got 10 minutes to run." Rachel exhaled. "And you?" Caleb smiled. "I'm already home." They didn't argue. They didn't try to change his mind. Logan plugged in the drive. The upload began. They ran. Through old service tunnels, past rusted signs and buried generators, Nova barked once, then bolted ahead. Echo followed. Then came the rumble, not of footsteps, but of stone. The mountain began to shake. Fissures split the ceiling. Lights burst. Steel screamed. Rachel reached the extraction shaft, shoved Sadie into the lift. Maya helped Logan inside. She turned, looked back. Caleb stood at the tunnel mouth, one hand raised. Then the ceiling collapsed. They made it out, barely. The snow was falling again. But not softly this time. It came down in furious sheets, like the mountain itself, weeping for what it had buried. The base was gone. But the broadcast was already live. Around the world, people watched in silence as the truth played out, frame by frame. The dogs, the children, the manipulation. Aurora was dead. But the memory lived on. Later, in a safe house 2 counties away, Sadie sat by a fire. Nova's head rested on her knee. Echo curled beside her. Rachel came in holding a battered envelope. "It came through the dead drop," she said. "Addressed to you." Sadie opened it. Inside, a photograph. Her mom. Holding a newborn. Her. On the back, a note. "You're not broken. You're just remembering who you are." Sadie looked up, tears on her cheeks. "She's waking up," she said. Rachel nodded. "And she'll know who you are." It was a Sunday morning in early November, the kind where the cold feels kind, and the sky glows like soft chalk above the pines. Elk Hollow was quieter than usual. No tractors rumbling, no engines humming. Just wind, weaving through brittle branches like a memory no one could quite name. Sadie stood on the front porch of the cabin, cradling a steaming mug between her palms. Nova sat beside her, still as a statue. Echo lay curled up at the edge of the steps, tail twitching in sleep. But something was missing. It took her a moment to realize what. It was the sound, specifically, the lack of one. Usually by now, Echo would have barked, Nova would have paced the perimeter, or Sadie would have felt the subtle nudge of a cold nose against her hand. Today, Nova didn't move, and Echo didn't bark, because this morning one of them wasn't there. It had been 3 weeks since the mountain came down and exposed the full horrors of the Aurora program. Overnight, every news channel flipped. Investigations opened. Whistleblowers crawled out of hiding like frost-cracked soil. A nation that had looked away now looked inward. The footage Logan uploaded, children with wires in their spines, dogs drugged into obedience, memories altered for control, spread faster than wildfire. And Sadie's mother? She woke up. It wasn't dramatic. No gasps, no sudden cries of, "Where am I?" Just a slow blink in a hospital room filled with late afternoon sun, a faint smile, and a single word. "Sadie." Rachel had dropped the coffee she was holding. Sadie had just collapsed onto her mother's chest, sobbing so violently the monitors had screamed. But her mom had laughed. "They didn't take everything," she whispered. Now, weeks later, the world had moved on. But Sadie hadn't. Not entirely. Because when you spend years silent, numb, and forgotten, coming back to life feels almost too loud. She walked inside the cabin, tracing her fingers along the rough cedar walls, past Logan's old gear bag, Maya's patched-up field coat, and Rachel's stack of memory drive printouts that she'd begun organizing into a memoir she never planned to publish. Nova followed, his eyes tracking her like always. But Echo didn't stir. Because Echo was gone. It had happened fast. The infection, they said, had started near her lungs. A slow killer that the mountain's chemicals likely triggered long ago. Echo had lasted just long enough to make it home. 2 nights ago, she'd stopped eating. Last night she had nudged Sadie's hand once, just once, then laid her head down on Sadie's lap and never lifted it again. She died like she had lived, without a sound. No pain. Just stillness, and this morning the absence rang louder than grief. Outside, Rachel was digging a small grave near the apple tree where Echo used to nap in the shade. Her hands were red, raw from the frost, but she didn't stop. Maya stood nearby, holding a folded flag from the old Aurora facility, salvaged and repurposed into a burial cloth. Logan came from the shed carrying the old collar. It was scratched, burned in places, and missing the tag. Sadie took it from him. She walked with Nova to the edge of the field, where frost still clung to the tall grass. She could still hear the laughter from the fire pit last week, when Caleb's message had played on a loop. To remember is to resist, and to love what they tried to break, that's the ultimate rebellion. They buried Echo in silence. No words, only a howl from Nova that shattered the sky like glass. That night the cabin smelled of cinnamon and ash. Rachel baked pies. Maya strung up solar lights around the porch. Logan fixed the broken leg on the rocking chair. And Sadie wrote a letter. She didn't know who it was for. Maybe her mother. Maybe herself. Maybe for Echo. She wrote, "You never spoke, but you taught me everything about silence. About the power in watching, in staying close, in never giving up even when you don't understand the world you're in. They tried to erase us, rewire us. But you, little ghost with golden fur, you reminded me what I was before the pain. You never asked for anything, just stayed. And now that you're gone, I still hear your heartbeat. I still feel you at the foot of the bed. And I think maybe you weren't ever just a dog. Maybe you were the part of me they couldn't break." She folded the letter and placed it in the old biscuit tin Echo had once stolen from the pantry. Then she tucked it beneath the apple tree. Weeks turned to months. Snow gave way to mud, mud to green. Sadie's mother moved into the cabin down the hill. She taught music again, old songs on older pianos. Rachel started working with war trauma victims, using memory recovery therapy. Maya joined a civilian rescue unit with a new dog, Scout, trained by Sadie and Nova together. Logan left a few weeks later, heading south to chase storms and write about hope. And Sadie, she stayed. She stayed because the mountain still echoed, and because sometimes healing looks like roots, not wings. She opened a sanctuary just north of Elk Hollow, called it the Echo Center, a place where wounded dogs and wounded people found each other in the silence. No questions, no pressure, just trust. One morning, a little boy came with a dog who wouldn't eat, wouldn't bark, wouldn't wag. Sadie knelt beside him. "Sometimes," she said softly, "it's not that they're broken. It's that they're waiting to know it's safe to be whole again." The boy nodded. The dog looked up and wagged. That night, long after the frost had set in again and the wood stove crackled in gentle rhythm, Sadie sat alone in Echo's old spot near the fireplace. Nova had taken to sleeping by the front door, his head lifted every time wind stirred the porch like he was still waiting for her to return. But Sadie knew better. She watched the embers collapse in on themselves and thought back to the day she first found Echo. A skeletal shadow beneath the collapsed barn, starving, but refusing to eat. Not until someone noticed what was wrong inside her. And now here Sadie was, full pantry, warm home, a town that finally saw her. And still, something inside her wouldn't eat, wouldn't rest, wouldn't let go, until she heard it, a single bark. Clear, sharp, familiar. Sadie jolted upright, heart thudding. Nova was still asleep. The house was silent. But she heard it again, only this time it wasn't a bark. It was the low hum of a truck rolling up the gravel driveway. A second later, headlights spilled across the window panes. Logan stepped out first, mud on his boots, wind in his hair. A new dog in the passenger seat, a black and white pit lab mix with kind eyes and a scar that ran from his ear to his jaw. His name's Lucky, Logan said with a grin. Rescued him from a shelter in Tulsa. Thought he might like the mountains. Sadie didn't speak. She just knelt, offered her hand. Lucky didn't flinch, just pressed his forehead into her palm like he'd been waiting. Inside, Rachel laughed. Oh, we're gonna need a bigger rug. In the days that followed, Echo's grave became a place of quiet pilgrimage. Kids from town brought flowers. One elderly man brought a small wooden carving of a shepherd dog and left it beside the apple tree. Someone, no one ever said who, tied a weatherproof tag to the branch above the grave. It read, "She didn't save the world. Just the parts that mattered." Months passed. Then one spring afternoon, the sanctuary bell rang, a soft chime that echoed through the meadows and into the porch, where Sadie had just finished mending a torn leash. She opened the gate and froze. There stood a girl, no older than 15. Her hoodie was stained. Her shoes too big. But what struck Sadie wasn't the girl. It was the dog beside her. Skinny. Matted, limping, and not eating. "He hasn't touched a thing in days," the girl whispered, "but he keeps looking at me like he's trying to say something." Sadie knelt. The dog didn't back away. Just watched her, carefully, like Echo had. Like he knew something she didn't. Sadie looked up and smiled. "Come on in," she said gently. "You're not alone anymore." That night, Sadie stood by the apple tree, stars wheeling overhead. She spoke softly, though no one was there. "You were never just a dog," she whispered. "You were the compass, the proof, the one who stayed." Nova padded beside her and sat. Then Lucky came too, and then the limping dog with the silent eyes, and one by one a pack formed. Not a loud one, not a famous one, just broken animals and broken people who somehow made each other whole. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, type 1 in the comments. If you wish no animal ever had to go through what she did, type 0. Your simple comment helps others find stories that matter. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We share true soul-stirring animal stories every single week. Stories about healing, hope, and the quiet heroes who walk on 4 legs. Next, you won't want to miss the story of the dog who stopped a wedding and revealed a secret that changed everything. We'll see you there.